Hey guys, today's video is on how leaders intentionally use their energy using the purpose filter. And if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Elika. I'm an energy optimization coach and a trusted advisor for purpose-driven leaders who know you need more energy to create the impacts that you're here to make in this world. So if you're interested to learn the lifestyle habits and hacks, then tune in. So today's video, I want to really take you through the mindset of how leaders are way more intentional about how they use their energy and what actually deserves their energy. So the big problem that a lot of leaders have is actually decision making. And if you can imagine the difference for me between a leader and an employee, or I hate to say it, like a farmer and the sheep, is someone's got to make a decision. And as I always say to so many of my clients, it's not about like making the wrong decision. It's about your ability to just make the decision. And the separation between those that are willing to take the responsibility or the risk to make a decision is worlds apart from those that do not want to take on that responsibility and therefore are happy to outsource that decision making to somebody else, which to me is like outsourcing part of your life to somebody else, and for them to do that for them. And what I love is when you consider how you want to use your energy way more intentionally and what actually deserves to have your energy. It's really about understanding that it's just about how you make your decisions. And most people make the decisions in the wrong way, and therefore I'm going to talk to you today about the purpose filter as a way. So the purpose filter is for me because over the years, when I first started working with business leaders, and I started initially my health coaching practice after my corporate consultancy career, I realized that there was a point that I got to where I no longer felt I could talk to them just about their physical body and how they could improve, through their diet, through their exercise. And I really needed to look at what was deeper than that. Like, let's say their why, the core part of themselves that was driving them. And the truth is, it was the core part that was driving me. Now, it's hard to say that early on in my career, I thought what was driving me was impact. But the truth is, when I left the corporate world with Burnout and started my own coaching business and then my restaurant, I took a lot of inner work to realize that I was driven by this purpose, this high performance, high achieving, got to show people and prove to people that I can make it. And that was underlying everything that I was building. And so no wonder my second burnout happened. But as I've spoken about before, my second burnout was brilliant. It was brilliant for me to go a layer deeper. And in that layer deeper, I got this opportunity to rebuild my life in a way that was much more sustainable and created so much more peace and so much more joy and so much more harmony. And in doing that, I had to have something that I could speak about forever, content creation that I could write forever on, something that was so intrinsic in the way that I live my life. And that for me was my purpose. And I think the mistake that people make is when they think that their purpose is a job title, or it's a position, or it's a company, or it's how much you get paid. A purpose is a direction. I like to call it the North Star. It's the direction that when you channel every single thing that you're doing, it has to go in this direction. And your values are indicators of that purpose. And so what you'll find in different points of your career, you may be doing different jobs, different seasons of your life, you may be doing different things. But the thing that drives you, that creates the most meaning for you and feels the most fulfilling, is this purpose. And so when some people talk about purpose, they get that sense that I don't think that we have one purpose. And that's because we don't have one job. We don't have one thing that we're here to do. But it is generally a accumulation, let's say, of how your energy is channeled in a direction. And that's why for me, the North Star works really well, because I know that if I'm going in that direction of that star, then definitely I'm going to be on par. I'm going to feel fulfilled, and I'm going to be serving well, which is my purpose. So let's talk about what is the issue with why we don't focus on using the purpose as the filter. So I did write some notes actually here that I want to make sure that I cover with you. So without the purpose filter, what I find is that you will fall into the trap of the conditioning that we all get, right? This is the reason why we do inner work, to remove the layers of conditioning that people have put on us. So that conditioning starts from early childhood. We know that when we study a child's brain in the first 7 years, their brain is in a sponge-like state where they're easily susceptible to information. And so in those first 7 years, we get conditioned first, from our parents or our guardians, then by our education system, our teachers, and then from our community, our religion, our society, and usually then intimate partners. And these are all just layers that we put on ourselves. In human design, which I love to use, we call this a conditioning process. So when we have a lot of this conditioning, what actually happens is we're making decisions through the lens of what we have been conditioned by. So if our religion, for example, tells us that we can't eat a certain thing, then we're making a decision based on that, and sometimes overriding our cravings, our signals from our internal system, our body, that we might need a nutrient or a vitamin or a mineral is in need from the body. If we, for example, have been conditioned by our education system that we have to go into a certain level of education next, right? So think about how the education system works. In the UK, that used to be nursery, primary school, high school, college, university. But what if you're a gifted child? Do you have to go in such a linear fashion to understand all that you need? Do you have to actually go through that system, or could you get life experience and go travel the world and see everything that you would have learned in actual real life? Can you bypass the whole education system itself? So, a lot of immigrant children, they will get, and I had this, being third generation, that education is so important. I remember as a child, the one thing that my mother would always say to me is, I don't care if you don't like me, as long as you get a good education. And that is because, when we think about lineage for a lot of third or immigrant children, their parents went through so many challenges that education became the reason why they wanted to move to another country to make sure that they could provide and do well for their children. And so if you have that, then you are not necessarily going to be geared towards being entrepreneurial, like skipping the education system and therefore wanting to just do what feels good and might make you successful because you will put all of your energy into it. Instead, you're going to go down this linear fashion of going down an education system, even if it doesn't feel good. And think of all the people that do finance, accounting, even medical school, become a lawyer, engineer, not because that was their deep passion, not because that's what they couldn't think of anything else but to do that, but because that was what was their conditioning was wrong. So there are so many ways that we get conditioned, and in that conditioning, what happens is you start making decisions based on those conditioning. And what that does is it ends up moving you away from what you're actually designed and here called to do. The other quality it will bring out is it will bring out people pleasing. So when you don't have a purpose filter, you will naturally fall into this trap of, and it's very evolutionary, right? So we're social creatures, but this, what do I do to make people happy? Or I'll just do what they want. So, I know recently we were going to an event, and me and my partner, we were actually just sat on this table, and everyone was joining the table, and then the organizer realized that she'd got the table seating a bit wrong and hadn't actually allowed for the main guest, who was the chef, to sit. So she was trying to move people around, but everyone was like, oh no, I'm with my friend, I'm with a friend. And my partner looked at me, and there was 2 separate tables, and he said, I don't mind to move. And I was kind of fine. So, and he turned around to her and said, I'm happy to sit on the other table. And she was like, oh, really? And, the thing is, one of the things that I said to him afterwards was, did you do that to just please her? Or was that what you truly felt was the right thing to do? Because he's a guy of such high integrity. And I know that, but I also know that there's a tendency there to also just do things to please others. And in that moment, what he realized was she was so uncomfortable with the mistake that she'd made that he wanted to soothe her uncomfort. And so you can see that some people might, now in that scenario, you know, him and I were absolutely fine not to have dinner together that night, but in that scenario, you could then displease your partner or the person that you're with or the time that you wanted to spend with that person in order to just make sure that somebody else isn't uncomfortable. And how many times do we do that? How many times do you find that in order to make someone not uncomfortable, you people please? You do something that's against what you want. I can tell you, even me with my strong Aries boundaries, the amount of networking events that I go to where I continue to speak to someone that sometimes, frankly, I sometimes think they shouldn't even be in the rooms, for some of the rooms that I'm in, but I can see how uncomfortable they are. And so I speak to them, not because I feel like, you know, that this is going to be a valuable exchange, but actually just to make them feel a little bit more comfortable in that moment. And I stay sometimes a little bit longer than I should. And when I'm staying a little bit longer than I should, I can feel the uncomfort in me where I'm like, this is not a good energy exchange, because I'm giving value to you to make sure you feel comfortable. I'm giving you energy, I'm giving you, you know, ease, but I'm also at discomfort because maybe there's other people that I really need to make sure that I speak to. So we do this all the time. It's, you know, a mild grade, sometimes people pleasing to the extreme of literally being so uncomfortable, doing something you really don't want to make sure that somebody else feels okay, someone else is happy. And then there's this feeling that we also get about the identity that we take on. So sometimes we hold an identity. You can hold the identity of the husband, of the wife, of the mother, of the friend, of the intelligent one, of the easy to get along with person. You can hold all these different identities, and sometimes you decide that actually I don't want to hold that identity anymore. I have known that whenever I moved through different parts of my education, and also when I moved different countries, I knew that it was a big part of me that had to really decide, who do I want to be in this environment? I remember it so much when I moved from one company to another in my corporate career. I remember going, I am not going to join this company and be known as this person who, and actually for me in that moment, it comes to me that I did not want to be known as the person that comes in early and stays late. Because I knew the moment that I labeled myself in that way, which I'd done all in my career, I knew that it was going to be really hard for me to shift that identity because I would hold myself to it. And so when you hold yourself to a certain identity and you realize that's no longer serving you, it becomes hard. And so you start making decisions from the person that is the identity that you don't want and not from the person of the identity that you want. Think about this when it comes to exercise. Like, how many of us may hold the identity of somebody that is fit and healthy, and therefore we choose, for example, I choose hotels, I choose where I live based on gyms, based on my ability to exercise. I choose cafes that I work in based on their menus, because I hold the identity of someone that's healthy and has a healthy lifestyle. But if you don't have that identity and you're trying to be healthy, then of course when you go on holiday, of course it's a reason why you can't work out. You know, of course, when you walk into a restaurant and this is the main food that they sell is based around flour and sugar, of course you have to eat flour and sugar. You can't possibly just skip that meal and just have a drink until you can eat properly, because you haven't associated yourself with a certain identity. So this really stops us from being able to make decisions in the right way because we haven't got that right filter. So let's talk about what it's like to apply your purpose filter. Now, I am going to tell you that the best tool I have found for this is human design. And so please make sure you've watched my videos about human design if for any reason you're new to human design. But human design is the most beautiful blend of science and ancient wisdom that gives you a roadmap to your most authentic self. It explains visually, through a visual interpretation of your body, we call it the body graph, of how your body is designed energetically. And therefore, it gives clarity on who you are, what you're here to do, and how you're here to do it. And currently right now, I'm nearly a decade into studying human design and still finding so many different facets of how I can use it for my clients. But the main way I use it is I give my clients clarity on what their body's energy was designed to do. How their body was designed to receive energy in a way that feels good. How their body decides to make decisions. And so in human design, you have a few areas that are super helpful for this. One is we have something in human design called an inner authority. It goes against the notion, which we've been conditioned, that our brain is always the best way to make decisions. Actually, it uses the body as an energetic system, and therefore our body's intelligence is the way. And each person has a unique way. So mine is called the gut or the sacral. And so I make decisions from my gut. I get a gut feeling about something. It's an in the moment primal feeling in my gut that, hell yeah, that's the thing. And so I make decisions on that. And then I use my brain to figure out the how. Other people's will be emotional. I think you know those people that seem very emotional and make decisions on their emotions. Some people will be intuitive, right? So we have all these different ways that are unique to us. So if you're interested in exploring human design, we can talk about that. But definitely, I would encourage you to consider bringing up, you can get a human design chart very easily on the internet now, but bringing up your human design chart so you know what is your inner authority. The second thing that we have in human design that really helps us is we have what we call the incarnation cross. And this is the moment in our creation, the moment where, let's say, the stars aligned and you were born, and therefore energetically you were created. And because of the influences of the energy of the environment that you were in when that was created, then you have a certain, let's say, destiny. And it's not prescriptive. You don't have to follow this particular thing, but you will find that energetically you feel aligned to that. And so in human design, which, is taking a lot of the different elements of ancient wisdom, plus the pseudoscience like astrology and numerology, plus the study of physics, energy, quantum physics. So when we look at all of these aligned together, we can see that each of us has a roadmap to the story of our life, like how our body is designed energetically that then shapes what we do. Because what is action? Action is just aligned energy. It's aligning your energy with a thought, which is a form of consciousness, and aligning those two together to actually create something, a physical manifestation. And a physical manifestation can be an item, something that you create. It can be a business that you build. It can be a movement that you make. It can be a community that you join, but it's all from that aligned energy. And so, for example, in my incarnation cross, it's very much about deeply penetrating people to assist them with their transformation. And anyone that you'll speak to will say that Elika is very deep. She says it how it is. Some people I'm very cutting. I'm not for everybody. And my clients, most of the reasons why my clients hire me is that I tell them the truth. Not the sugarcoating, not what you're supposed to hear, but the truth that's going to really set you free. And so when you have that North Star, now and your inner authority together, now this really helps to create this very powerful filter. So let me tell you how I apply that. So with mine, I apply that through when I think about my health. It means that I have to have a lot of boundaries. I have to have boundaries with where I eat, boundaries with what I put in my fridge, boundaries with where my partner can take me for dinner, right? And boundaries with the staff in restaurants and cafes that I go to, where they might want to prepare my food in a certain way, and if I don't have the boundaries enough to speak up, right? So these are all boundaries that I need to put in place to be healthy. And now, why do I want to be healthy? Well, I want to be healthy because for me, I have a mission to deeply penetrate people and assist them in their transformation. And so over the years, what I've realized is they need to have energy in order to do that. They need to have clarity on how to use that energy. And so for me, as somebody that's deeply embodied in understanding what energy looks and feels like, I work all the time to optimize my own energy. And therefore, health is a huge part of that. So you can see that under health, it's actually my filter, it's actually my purpose. And me staying healthy and thriving is actually through me integrating and deeply embodying my wisdom and knowledge about energy. And then when I look at, let's say, how I want to make money in this world, money is also energy for me. So how I want to make money is I want to feel that when I give my energy out, I get the reciprocal, right? So I don't want to receive from people and then feel like I'm just taking from them and I don't add value to them. That doesn't feel good inside of my body. And so what I have realized is that I really feel great when I'm making a difference to people's transformation, which again is part of my incarnation cross. So when I'm assisting people to go from A to B, to go from a thought process to an enlightened thought process, to go from I work with the top 10%. So from going from a high achiever, a high performer, a heart-centered leader, to the highest expression of themselves that exists physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So this really fills me with joy when I do that. So when I apply the filter, that means that I need a client that is wanting to grow and expand. I need a client that is willing to pay me for all of the value that I'm going to pour into them. I need to have an environment that is conducive to that, which luckily for me, that creates a lot of freedom in where I live and where I work. So these are things that I apply through the lens of my purpose when I make a decision. Like, is this client going to go on this journey with me where I have to tell them the truth? Or are they not? Are they wanting to keep it superficial? In which case I will refer them out. I'll refer them to whoever they need, a therapist, a personal trainer, a gym, a nutritionist. But because I want all of them, I want to work holistically on them. And when I apply this to my relationships, I think about my relationships the same way. For me, this is one of the most important decisions that you can make in your life. So is my relationship going to support me emotionally when I'm maybe having my down times, my winter season? Is it going to support me emotionally so that I can have the energy to go out and do the impact that I'm here to do? So is this relationship going to be conducive of my health needs, right? For example, I need to sleep so that I can wake up refreshed and recharged and optimized in my own energy to be able to create this impact in the world. So when I think about what I want to do and the vision and the mission that I have, I need a relationship that supports me doing that. And so that is also through the lens of my purpose. So when you pull all this together, you really can start at when you have the ability to make great decisions. It's because you actually have clarity on your purpose, which is really about how your energy is designed to be used in this world, which I'm using human design as a tool to do that. And therefore, you can decide what gets your energy and what doesn't, because you have a pure filter in which to run it through. And when you do this, you will understand that you can now conserve so much more energy. You can be an overflow of your energy, and from that overflow, pour into your impact because you've applied the right filter. So I'd love to hear what comes up for you in this video today. So leave your comments here with me below. And if you've liked this video and it's given you value, do give it a like so more people can start to really understand about how our energy impacts us and all the beings around us. And if you are wanting to learn more about the integration part of it, I would say that the place where I share the most, I'm most vulnerable, and I can really show you how I integrate this is my newsletter. And you'll see details of my newsletter in the description box. When you sign up for my newsletter, that's where I share my monthly energy audit, where I audit all parts of my life through the lens of energy, and just different things that I'm doing to apply the energy techniques of the lifestyle habits and hacks to myself and the clients that I work with. So I've loved sharing this with you today. I'm hoping that you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.